Supportables with week 4 behind us and week 5 just on the cusp of starting. We're going to take a few minutes here and take a look at the week that was and look ahead to the week that might just be. We saw a little bit more scoring in some cases. Our tight ends still haven't figured out the world. Some of our quarterbacks kind of have. And in our particular league, we had the answer as to whether our undefeated team would continue to roll. Would the team who lost last week and owes drinks do it again, even though he's currently sitting in Bangkok, now thinking about life and thinking about how many drinks he owes? I think we know the answer to that one already. So before I start wallowing in my own self-pity, let's go on to some NFL highlights from week 4. After week 4 in the NFL, we typically are faced with this kind of decision. Now, to put it in, I was going to say booty call because that's more my generation, but apparently I looked it up and it's situationship. So you can look up that definition, or in fact, I'll maybe just include it. But the idea that, is this something serious or is this something that we just want to walk away from? Now, in some cases in the NFL sense, Vegas has a hard time trying to set lines because we don't know, are these teams legit or not? We know there's only one 0-4 team left, and that's Jacksonville. If you have any piece of their offense, you're probably not super happy unless you did take their rookie wide receiver or you were excited to get their backup running back now that there's some kind of confusion in the backfield. Other than that, you're probably cut and baiting running, and that's not really even a question. Looking at our two undefeated teams, you've got Kansas City, who I'll talk about in a second, but Minnesota has kind of been the cash cow. You certainly look at someone like Sam Darnold. Are you going to keep rolling, and is he going to be the quarterback that you stole and get you to the playoffs? Or are you thinking maybe his time has come? He's done you well for a couple of weeks, but maybe now he's just going to run out of his luck. Now, Jefferson obviously doesn't qualify, and I wouldn't include their running game, but right now they're about as hot as it gets. So it really makes us have to think and put stock into who's great and who's not so much. We look back at our draft, this is almost split 50-50. And the running backs, most highly drafted running backs have been massive disappointments. Obviously McCaffrey with the injury, but we forget Hall and Bijan have not been the top 3, top 4, or highest auction picks that we were advertised. The only one you can argue, Jonathan Taylor, is probably pulling his weight. And on the receivers, it's pretty split. Hill, not his fault, but certainly not his excellence this year is what you're buying into. Garrett Wilson, who I'll talk about more. You've got a few people that are on that cusp of doing all right. I mean, Jefferson's obviously been doing great. CeeDee Lamb, St. Brown, and Chase have been all right, and they were all circling around that first round. So you're not really going to make huge deals with them, although some you might be considering at this stage if you're getting tired of waiting for them to wake up. But those mid-tier receivers like the Waddles, Ayuks, tight ends like Kelsey and Andrews, what do they all have in common? They actually have less receiving touchdowns than Jared Goff. He caught one last week. You can look it up if you didn't see it. That's not great. So we really have to start thinking, which offenses do you want to buy into, which players do you want to buy into, and which ones do you want to cut and run? And I think two teams really showed this for me. Number one, if you remember about 4 or 5 weeks ago when the league was just getting started, the New York Jets were a darling amongst a lot of people to have this prolific offense. And obviously Hall and Wilson, I mentioned, have been huge disappointments. But even at the quarterbacking position, Aaron Rodgers, who I think if you watched was lovingly referred to by Nikki Glazer as Throwin' Rogan, he was supposed to bring new blood to this offense this year, which is ironic both because of his age and he likely doesn't believe in giving blood for some reason. But he hasn't done anything but argue with coaches and coordinators about snap count. And the offense really has been stagnant to the point that they actually lost to a Denver Broncos team who had Bo Nix throwing so little yards that it was the least amount a quarterback has thrown in a win in over 17 years, Eli Manning being the most recent to do such a feat. The other team that I think is worth mentioning and has been kind of deceiving for a little while now is the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I did mention in an actual football sense they're 4-0, but for fantasy, that doesn't get you many points. You look at Vegas over-unders and you look at Yahoo Predicteds, and they still think the Chiefs' offense is good. But I'm not so sure. To me, it's closer to like friends. Not them being friends. Apparently they are friends, which I guess is impressive in a world that also argues with each other. They have a quarterback whose wife follows one candidate and a tight end whose girlfriend follows the other and a kicker who just says outlandish stuff occasionally, and apparently they still get along. But I'm talking about the TV show Friends. Now, not to go on a massive tangent, and many of you know my bias towards TV shows. I did give them up for over a year and did not miss them at all because I felt that I just would like a character or a plot line, and then I'd watch several seasons only to realize I stopped liking the show several seasons ago. Friends kind of falls in that category for me. I was young, or I'm old enough, I should say, to remember when I was young. The first couple seasons came out. They tackled hard-ending issues. They had, an openly gay couple. They were considered progressive, which is funny by modern standards now. They did even have some more serious and comedic episodes that I thought were kind of clever at the time. But then they just got real bad. And I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of Friends people out there, but find someone who's never watched an episode, show them some random episodes from, season 7, 8, 9, 10. I would have a hard time thinking they'd think it was a good show. Plus, if you think of the actual history of New York around season 8, 9, something kind of big happened that they just forgot to mention. And I guess the Friends characters were so self-involved, maybe they noticed or didn't notice the towers going. But weird not to mention that in a show based on New York. But that kind of is the point, is they became characters of each other and not real characters at all, but just caricatures. I think the Chiefs arguably are around the same. When is the last time Mahomes actually had consecutive weeks where he broke his Yahoo predicted? And Travis Kelce just exceeded his Yahoo predicted for the first time this season, and he only did it a handful in previous seasons. So I don't know why we keep expecting them to explode with this new offense. In fact, they've scored 30 or more points only 3 times in the last 26 games. And yet, some part of us still thinks, hey, but maybe this week is the week. So I think it's really good for us to go through our lineups right now and try to play that game. Is this serious? Do we want to make a bigger commitment? Or is this a booty call and I should cut and run, try and trade, or just outright drop the player? Anyway, that's spoken from someone who's doing about 50-50 overall in all the leagues, so that could be a little bitterness as well. Speaking of said leagues, let's get to some scores. Fourth and Conquer did just that this week with 170, which is going to win 99% of the time. So even though Ball Too Well didn't do too badly, they actually were in the 5th or 6th, I think the 5th highest scoring team, so they would have beat a lot of teams. Certainly weren't going to beat this one in this particular day. Team Lamborough? I don't know, anyone with the reference? I actually stole that from someone. How they did so, they had the running back one in Henry, and that kind of came out early in the week. They also, if we scroll down, had the quarterback one in Fields, which was an ad, so well done there. And their kicker was the kicker number 5. They had a wide receiver 3 in CeeDee Lamb, so scoring all across the board. So it did make up for a few middling performances. They didn't need them because their number ones were certainly going all the way out. They did leave a few things on the bench, but obviously, come on, 170, don't get greedy. Randy, I don't know if it would have helped that much, but losing Rice is huge. That's a big ding for your wide receivers. And between your 2 Robinsons, the one that shouldn't be the great one is still helping you out the most. You also probably have the most exciting quarterback in the league to actually watch on a football sense in Daniels. And Reed was your wide receiver 2, which is a nice kind of treat that Love was back in the game. You as well had some people you could have started, but realistically, I think with you're dealing with 170, only so much you can do. So Randy, not too bad. You're still in the top 4 because you're a high-scoring team with 2-2. Also at 2-2, now back in the win column. Congratulations, Hale Vincent. When she's on, she's on. Jackie had another pretty impressive win on Pamela, who kind of underperformed. Just Pamela's underperformance quickly. Actually, nothing really that badly. You did have a few people kind of disappoint, especially I'd say Singletary was your big one, but nothing that bad, and you obviously left some wide receiver points on the bench. But everyone doing just fine. Unfortunately, just fine wasn't going to be good enough for Jackie's 150. For her, she did have the best scoring defense, the 3rd best scoring quarterback, and the 5th best scoring wide receiver, but that was on her bench. But she has such wide receiver depth that she still had 2 of her 3 that she started within range, and obviously, or sorry, 2 within 4, because if you include Hill, who's not having the greatest of years. And it also made up for Andrews, who's still another week of just over. But again, it didn't kill her. Her kicker's still one of the better in the game, even though it didn't have a top 5 performance. So Jackie, once again, you're one of the many that seem to be at 2-2, and you're still currently in the playoff running at 5th. Penalty slipped just outside of the playoffs, but as we're going to see later on, I wouldn't hit the panic button just quite yet. After a slip-up, Raph and James rebound to a 3-1 with a near 150 performance over team Jake Paul and the Cerberus and the Raw Doggers. This was a fairly one-sided one, but actually there were some times where there was a little more tension. Obviously, you've got Mason, who went out and was actually your running back 4, or running the running backs 4, I should say. And no real huge drops, but it just Hall is absolutely killing you. Now, both teams made a conscious decision to put high-scoring running backs on the bench. So Brown was actually the wide receiver 5 on the week, and we had here Walker, which was not wide receiver, running back, and then Walker was the running back 2 on the week and had a monster performance. You didn't need it though, Raf and James. You also had, Chuba Hubbard's been a huge pickup. Nico Collins was the wide receiver 1 on the week. So you had enough scoring in general. And then, Stroud was also the quarterback 5. So when you scored big. You made up for, I'm going to stop. I probably won't stop. I'll keep forgetting to do this. But tight ends just don't score in general. So yeah, Pitt's having a 0, likely having a 3. Again, you kind of made the gentleman's agreement. If everyone just sucks, then we don't have to worry about tight end anymore. So well done there, I suppose. Raf and James, I'm sure you're happy to bounce back. 3-1, top 3. Can't complain about that. On the other side, 1-3. I think Jake and Paul, you're looking to make a move here. So best of luck going into next week. Sometimes you have those weeks where you go out, score 150 and you lose, and every once in a while you have those weeks where you score 115 and you take it down. Now, Kelsey, this is an anomaly. Obviously, you've been a highest scoring team this year, hence you being in the top 2. But you squeaked this one against Team Kickass. If we take a look, this was actually a Monday night battle. Our defending champions were up by 40.8 points, but Kelsey did have a healthy amount of players in Waddle, Williams, Gibbs, and Laporta. And obviously, as we see, she just squeaked over the bar. So congratulations on the Monday night victory. Not sure if you were watching, but it certainly was exciting. Now, in terms of the rest of the squad, neither one of you really had great quarterbacking performances, which was pretty disappointing, I'm sure, for everyone. In terms of our defending champs, it really has been Taylor that's been your key, and Jefferson. They've been helping out. They didn't have monster weeks this week, but at least they were keeping it reasonable. Your running backs, Kelsey, are still kind of saving you here. Gibbs and Kamara were doing an awesome job. And then obviously, as the aforementioned, Williams had a massive touchdown. That didn't hurt. When you only get 2 receptions, but one of them's for a touchdown, that kind of makes up for things. More importantly, Kelsey, you made all the right starts because your bench was anemic, whereas there were a few points to be had here, but I don't know if I would have put Kirk in or if he would have been quite enough, although if the 10 points here, had you done it strategically instead of Cooper, actually might have helped you out. But either way, Team Kick-Ass, I think you've given the league a best of a head start, so if you're going to make a run to defend your championship, now's probably the time. Kelsey, on the flip side of things, congrats, you're in our top 2. It's hard to get all the way through a video when I'm just ruining talking about my own self. So yes, for the second time in a row, I've gotten rid of my drink. So now I don't know anymore, which is fantastic for me. I'll be in contact about possibly setting something up and obviously sending some money over. Now, for me, getting an injury in the first quarter was not great with Richardson. It was even worse to have pretty much everybody I started just fall flat on their face. You could make the argument, I just got rid of it all in 1 week, but I'm pretty sure I said that last week, so I guess now next week will be better. When the only thing I can really brag about is my kicker was kicker 2. Yeah, not the greatest of weeks. On the flip side, Juliet and Laura, I wouldn't say you were magnanimous in victory for giving me the finger afterwards online, but you know what? That's fine, That's you do you do what you got to do. Swift was a shock. I actually thought he was going to have a horrible week. I was totally wrong about a lot of things. That was definitely one of them. He was the running back 3 on the week. You also had Goff, which was the quarterback 4, and as I mentioned, even caught a touchdown. So both your quarterbacks did well enough, but one of them both threw and caught, which is quite rare. You did have a few points on the bench. I had a massive amount of points on the bench. Love was actually in our top 5 quarterbacks. That would have made me feel better, and it would have maybe not have to pay for drinks, and that would have been awesome with the world, but it didn't happen. I could have made a lot of changes and not had to pay for drinks. But you know what? I'm happy. I'm done now. I don't know anymore after this week. And plus, if I lose any more, we'll stop caring in general, so we'll see. Anyway, for me, I'm still falling to the bottom, so if I'm going to make my comeback, I better start soon. Juliet and Laura, still undefeated. Who's going to be the one to take them down? Not uncommon for this time of year, but with a lot of tightness kind of going through. Now, if you get 2 wins, you're currently in the playoffs. If you get 1, you're on the outside looking in. So a bunch of us down here are going to have to try and make a move. And like I said, we currently got the top dog. Will they run all the way through? I'm not so sure. So let's see about week 5. Really the big question, this is where Yahoo just knows its matchups. Now, bye weeks are going to come up. I'll talk about that one in a second. But we do have a 1 versus 2, which is pretty epic here. We've got a 4 versus 5, also is epic. And we have 2 matches of the 1 versus 3. So a lot of movement's going to happen. The standings should shift slightly. I'm not just ignoring you here. It's 2 playoff teams as well, so a 3 versus 6. And in fact, if the playoffs were to start, 3 does play 6 and 4 does play 5. So maybe this is a mock playoff round. We'll see how it goes. But definitely, I expect a lot of movement in the standings for week 5. Well, my pity party's over. Now I'll move on to week 5, where at least I won't have to buy any more drinks, and hopefully some people will score a little bit more. We got a lot of exciting matchups and not much more time before kickoff gets us started for our week 5 Thursday nighter. Bye weeks, you probably are aware, but if you are not, the next 2 weeks are actually quite killer for a lot of people. This week it's the Lions, the Eagles, the Chargers, and the Titans. 2, if not 3 of those teams are featured fairly prominently in a lot of our teams, so I'm assuming some people are hitting that bite pretty quickly. Could affect some very, very key matchups as well. So very excited to see how it rolls down. Very bummed I missed last week's poorly attended drinks. Hopefully the next one that I will be pretty much catering will be a little bit more frequented and attended. Till then, best of luck in week 5, everyone.